I want to give a refresher on a really cool Doctrine feature, lazy objects. Open up source entity starship_part.php. This entity has a starship property with a many-to-one relationship to our starship entity. Each starship part has one starship, and each starship can have many starship parts. When fetching entities with relationships, Doctrine uses some cool magic to avoid unnecessary database queries. Let's see how it works in action. Over in your terminal, create a new controller, Symfony console make controller. Name it lazy controller, and no need for tests. Open the new controller in source controller lazycontroller.php. Okay, we have this index method whose route is set to /lazy. Inject starship part repository into it. Then grab the first part from the repository with part equals repository arrow find one. Dump it with dump part. Now head back to our app and manually navigate to the /lazy URL. Looking at the web debug toolbar, we see a single query. That's the one fetching the starship part. If we open the dump profiler panel, we see the fetch starship part object. Note the starship property. Its type is this funky proxy CG thing. This is a Doctrine lazy object. Look inside. All the properties are unset except for the ID. The ID is the only thing Doctrine knows about the starship until it queries the database for the rest of the data. Only when accessing a property of the starship does Doctrine trigger a second query to fetch the rest. Let's trigger this second query. In lazy controller index, add part arrow get starship arrow get name as the first argument to the dump. Refresh the /lazy page. There are now two queries. The first one fetches the starship part, and the second one fetches the starship because we accessed its name. In the dump panel, we can see the starship is now fully loaded with all its properties. So this CG proxy thing is a real class Doctrine generates on the fly. It contains all the logic to fetch the data when needed. The key is it extends the real starship entity. That's how it can be used as a stand-in for the starship until the actual data is needed. That's also why entities cannot be final. They need to be extendable by these proxy classes. As you might imagine, the logic to do all this is pretty complex and difficult to maintain. But that all changed in PHP 8.4, which introduced native lazy objects to PHP itself. And DoctrineBundle 3 allows our Symfony apps to take advantage. Okay, let's see what our lazy objects look like now. First, head back to lazy controller index and remove the first argument from the dump. This should be dumping the part with a starship instance that isn't fully loaded. Refresh the lazy page in your browser. Okay, just one query, which is expected. Open the debug panel and check the starship property. This is now our normal starship entity, not that generated proxy class. But look inside. All the properties are unset except for the ID. This looks just like we saw in the old proxy class. This is native lazy objects in action. Back in lazy controller index, re-add the part arrow get starship arrow get name to the dump and refresh the lazy page again. Two queries, and if we look at the starship property in the dump panel, still just our normal starship entity, and if we expand it, all its properties are loaded. Okay, this is cool, but what does it really mean for me as a developer? Well, there probably is some performance improvement with native lazy objects, but the primary takeaway is we can now, finally, mark our entities as final.